Sudan, a nation in northeast Africa, has long been plagued by internal strife. Deep divisions within Sudanese society, often rooted in ethnic, religious and economic disparities, have repeatedly fueled conflict. The Sudanese Armed Forces, the country's official military, and the Rapid Support Forces, a paramilitary group with roots in the Darfur conflict, emerged as key players in this volatile landscape. Their rivalry, fueled by a thirst for power and control over resources, would have devastating consequences for Sudan. The stage for the 2023 civil war was set years earlier, with the seeds of discontent sown during the brutal reign of Omar al-Bashir. Bashir, who seized power in a 1989 coup, ruled Sudan with an iron fist for 3 decades. His regime was marked by widespread human rights abuses, economic mismanagement, and a brutal crackdown on dissent. The Darfur conflict, which erupted in 2003, became a symbol of the Bashir regime's brutality, with the RSF, then known as the Janjaweed militia, accused of widespread atrocities against civilians. In 2019, a popular uprising, fueled by years of simmering anger against Bashir's oppressive rule, swept across Sudan. Protesters took to the streets, demanding an end to corruption, economic hardship, and Bashir's grip on power. The protests, met with a brutal crackdown by security forces, gained momentum, ultimately forcing Bashir from power in April 2019. The fall of Bashir marked a turning point for Sudan, raising hopes for a democratic transition after decades of authoritarian rule. The Sudanese Armed Forces, which played a pivotal role in ousting Bashir, joined forces with the Rapid Support Forces to form a transitional military council, promising to pave the way for civilian rule. However, the TMC's grip on power proved tenuous as pro-democracy activists demanded a swift handover to civilian leadership. After months of negotiations and protests, a power-sharing agreement was reached in August 2019, establishing a civilian-led transitional government. The agreement, hailed as a significant step towards democracy, aimed to guide Sudan through a 3-year transition period culminating in elections. However, the transitional government faced daunting challenges, inheriting a country grappling with a shattered economy, deep-seated divisions, and the legacy of Bashir's repressive regime. Despite these challenges, the transitional government made some progress, engaging in peace talks with rebel groups, lifting some restrictions on freedoms, and seeking to dismantle the remnants of Bashir's regime. However, the underlying tensions between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, both vying for influence and control, continued to simmer beneath the surface, threatening to derail the fragile transition. Section 4. Fault lines emerge. As the transitional period progressed, the rivalry between the SAF and the RSF intensified, fueled by disagreements over the planned integration of the RSF into the regular army. The RSF, wary of losing its autonomy and influence, resisted calls for full integration, demanding a prolonged timeline and guarantees for its leadership. The SAF, seeking to consolidate its control over the military, pushed for a swifter integration process, viewing the RSF as a threat to its authority. These disagreements, coupled with personal ambitions and a lack of trust between the two forces, created a dangerous dynamic. Both sides engaged in a dangerous game of brinkmanship, deploying troops and heavy weaponry in a show of force, further escalating tensions and raising fears of a violent confrontation. Section 5. The Tinderbox ignites. The simmering tensions between the SAF and the RSF finally erupted into open warfare on April 15, 2023. The immediate trigger for the fighting remains unclear, with both sides blaming the other for initiating the violence. However, the underlying factors, including the power struggle between the SAF and the RSF, the legacy of impunity, and the failure to address the root causes of conflict, created a tinderbox that was waiting to ignite. The fighting, which initially centered around key military installations and the airport in the capital Khartoum, quickly spread to other parts of the country. Both sides deployed heavy weaponry, including tanks, artillery, and fighter jets, in densely populated urban areas, with devastating consequences for civilians. Section 6. A legacy of conflict. The 2023 Sudanese Civil War represents a tragic setback for Sudan's hopes for a peaceful and democratic transition. The conflict has plunged the country into chaos, exacerbating existing humanitarian crises, displacing millions and jeopardizing the hard-won gains of the transitional period. The international community has condemned the violence, calling for an immediate ceasefire and a return to dialogue. The roots of the conflict run deep, reflecting the complex interplay of historical grievances, ethnic tensions, economic disparities, and the struggle for power. As the fighting rages on, the Sudanese people are left to bear the brunt of this senseless violence, their hopes for a brighter future hanging in the balance.